Yo, what is up guys, and welcome to another One Punch Man the Strongest SSR review video. So, Zombieman is out. If you guys don't have enough black tickets, it's either time to quit or save up your black tickets until his rerun banner, which will most likely come back within the next 3 months. Zombieman is basically going to define the next upcoming meta. We will talk about why he's such an important unit, as well as why there's so much hype over him in the upcoming slides. So let's get started. First, let's go over the pros and cons. Starting off with the pros, he is a meta-changing unit in both PvP and PvE. In fact, he will push your PvP and PvE to the next level. You'll be able to climb to the highest potential in PvP, as well as being able to clear a lot of the more difficult PvE stages, as well as the higher floors of Institute of Genetics. Next, he is insane healing from both his core and his ultimate. Now, this might be a positive thing for Zombieman. However, it is a negative side effect for the other healers in the game, such as Mosquito Girl and Smile Man, which have essentially become irrelevant due to Zombieman's release. King can still be used, however, for his energy seal and his damage, obviously. But the other two, they pretty much are limited in their uses compared to what they were before. His revive mechanism allows for advancement in PvE, and it's one of the very first revive mechanics we're introduced to. It's a very useful mechanic. It's essentially a better version of unyielding, and the fact that he's able to revive constantly means that he will make for a very useful tank. This therefore allows him to become an essential bossing unit for all stages of the game. He also serves as a front line, like I mentioned earlier, while dealing a decent amount of damage, both in the form of single target and AoE. He also has easy access to single target injury debuff, which is from his basic attack. I'll go over more of that in his skill analysis. And last, he's a good filler unit, even once the meta shifts away from his core. In fact, he's still being used even during the SSR Plus era for bossing and other PvE stages and events. Okay, next let's talk about his cons, which there aren't many, honestly. It's pretty difficult for me to even think of these few. The first con is he is a must-pull unit, as I like to call it. Without him, your progress will be gated. And you'll be gated in both PvP and PvE. Such examples will be like Club Boss Boros. If you don't have Zombieman, it'll be near impossible to do Club Boss Boros, even though he's not out yet in the global server. When he comes out, you'll see what I mean. As well as harder PvE stages that will eventually be released, either through events or just new game modes, as well as being able to advance further in Institute of Genetics, especially on the harder floors. You will definitely need Zombieman. And last, he requires 5-star limit break to be the most effective. This is mostly because of his extreme passive, which we will talk about later, and it's very useful for PvE bossing. If you don't have his extreme passive when you're trying to do bosses, the difference is night and day. Okay, moving on. Next, let's get into his skills. First, we have Pistol Snipe, which is his basic attack. It deals 120% of his attack damage to a single target, and it has a 100% chance to inflict injury on a target for 2 rounds. When attacked, takes injury damage by 100% attack. And this is an easy source of single target injury, which is really good for bossing. He doesn't even need to ult, you just need to cast his basic attack. On top of that, this is actually one of the highest instances of injury damage in the game as of right now. I think a My Mask is 70% injury attack damage, and that's with his extreme passive. I don't know how much Tatsumaki is. I think the regular one is 60% injury damage. I don't know how much her Ultra Ultimate is, but comparing those two to Zombieman's 100% injury damage attack is already pretty crazy. And he doesn't even have to cast his ultimate, like I said. He can just use his basic attack. So this already makes Zombieman a very powerful unit. Okay, next we have his ultimate. He attacks a single target with 5 consecutive strikes for 240% of his attack. In addition, it also heals your team equal to 100% of his attack. Overall, a pretty good ultimate. It does a solid amount of damage and heals your entire team for quite a bit. And it scales off his attack, so you definitely want to be putting attack gear on your Zombieman. And then for his Ultra Ultimate, this requires his Keepsake. Attacks a single target with 5 consecutive strikes for 300% of his attack. In addition, it heals your team for HP equal to 150% of his attack. So the healing boost is quite significant. The damage increase is only 60% of his attack, doesn't really make much of a difference in PvE, but it will definitely impact PvP quite a bit. but I wouldn't really worry about it too much since most of us, actually pretty much anyone besides a whale, will not be able to afford Zombie Man's keepsake. So just don't worry about his Ultra Ultimate too much. I'm just letting you guys know that it will affect PvP a little bit, especially during the Zombie Man era. But other than that, for PvE, it's not essential, so you don't really need it. Next, we're going to go over his passive. So his regular passive is Regeneration. After taking fatal damage, deals extra damage of 60% of his attack to all the enemies. Triggers Reborn, which is his revive mechanic. When an ally is present, keep this in mind, an ally has to be present. He cannot be the only one alive. Recovers 10% HP before action up to 4 times. So he essentially is able to revive 4 times if you have another ally alive at the time. Now we take a look at his extreme passive. After taking fatal damage, deals extra damage equal to 80% attack to all the enemies. Triggers Reborn. When an ally is present, recovers 15% of his HP before action up to 6 times. And this is exactly why it is so important that you need to limit break your Zombie Man to 5-star as soon as possible. Because now he's able to revive up to 6 times, and that is a huge difference, especially in PvE bossing. This will allow your lineup to basically survive to either round 9 or round 10, I forgot which one. But because of this, you'll be able to do more damage since you're able to last more rounds, and Zombie Man will be able to revive more often. His extreme passive will also make quite a bit of difference in PvP, although it's not as crazy as PvE. Him being able to revive 6 times and dealing more damage to everyone on the enemy team will definitely have an impact. Okay, now we are going to talk about his different cores. Starting off with his core level 1, and his basic core of course. When they are injured or internally injured, which is a new debuff that will be introduced very soon, enemy character and tenacity allied character each obtains 2 energy. Triggers 1 time every round. You need 1 duelist and 2 grapplers for this. So what it's saying is, every time you trigger an internal injury or injury debuff, you get 2 energy. This can happen 1 time every turn, as well as whenever an ally gains tenacity, you'll also get another 2 energy. And this can only happen 1 time per turn. So to do some quick math here, you start off the round or turn with 3 energy. You get 2 energy when you trigger the debuff, and you get another 2 energy when your ally gets tenacity. So you get a maximum total of 7 energy for turn 1 or round 1. Unfortunately for Zombie Man basic core, it can be countered by energy seal because of this, because you start out with only 3 energy, and if the enemy energy seals you for 2, then you won't be able to cast your ultimate on turn 1, which is one of the weaknesses of Zombie Man core. Next, let's talk about the advanced effect. When each character acts, all your characters recover 4% HP. So what this means is, when each character acts, that means your opponent's characters as well. All your characters on your team will heal by 4% HP, lasting 2 rounds or 2 turns. This is freaking insane. This is what makes Zombie Man the next meta, essentially. And the last part, unleashing internal injury increases ultimate bonus damage by 20%. And his advanced effect requires 1 duelist and 3 grapplers. Now this last part, I've heard from many people, and just based on my experience in the Southeast Asia server, this last effect for the increased ultra damage bonus, it lasts for the entire battle, and it affects your entire team. Your entire team gets the ultimate damage bonus by 20%, and it lasts for the remainder of the battle. This is very similar to Child Emperor's Core 1, except for Child Emperor, his effect only lasts for the first turn or the first round. And this is exactly why Garou is such a good unit with Zombie Man as well, since he is one of the easiest characters to trigger internal injury, and you'll get this 20% ultimate damage buff for the remainder of the battle. Alright, next we're going to take a look at his level 4 core. Grants 1 energy if there are internally injured enemy character, can only trigger 1 time per round, and you need 3 grapplers and 1 duelist for this core level 4. So to summarize this, you'll get a total of 8 energy, and this will allow you to cast basically 4 ults every round. Although this is probably not worth over the healing and 20% ultimate bonus damage for the remainder of the battle, I think the core level 1 is probably stronger than the core level 4. This core level 4 seems a little bit underwhelming for what it does. Okay, next, let's talk about his core level 10. Although, I don't think you guys should worry about this one too much because it will take a while for you guys to even get to core level 10. I haven't even unlocked it on the Southeast Asia server. As you can see, there's a little lock icon next to it. I haven't unlocked it yet. And it's basically just at the start of each round seals 2 energy. When same effects coexist, the one with the highest effect shall prevail. So it's basically just saying every round you sealed 2 energy for the enemy. This is essentially Deep Sea King core level 4. Except you have to get Zombie Man's core to level 10 in order to activate it, and it requires 3 grapplers and 1 duelist. Honestly, also not really worth it because it's very difficult to obtain, and by the time you reach or get his core to level 10, his meta will be over, and by then, Energy Seal is not that strong because the future cores, you get a lot of energy already with the cores, so sealing 2 energy won't really do much for you in those situations. Next, we have his core level 17. I'm just gonna go over it. Don't even worry about this. You're never gonna reach this. And if you do, it'll probably take you, I don't know, 5 years to reach level 17 core for Zombie Man. But basically, it's whenever each character acts, your characters heal, recover 4.5% of their HP, lasting 2 rounds. Unleashing internal injury increases ultimate bonus damage by 25%. And apparently, you only need 2 grapplers and 1 duelist for this effect. It's basically just Zombie Man core level 1's advanced effect on steroids. It's just a stronger version of it, and you only need 2 grapplers and 1 duelist, and you have to get his core to level 17. Good luck with that. That's probably never happening, even for the whales. Okay, let's talk about his build next. For his gears, you want a suit set and 4 attack main stat gears. Either 3 attack percent gears and 1 attack speed, or 2 attack percent gears and 2 attack speed gears. The reason for this is because you don't want Zombie Man to be either speed 1 or speed 2, because with him casting his ult early on in the fight, you're wasting his healing potential, and you're basically wasting an ult as well. You also don't want him to be speed 6 or speed 5, your last 2 speeds, because by the time he casts his ult as your last character to move, either all your other characters will be dead, or if he's not casting his ult and he's using his basic attack for injury, the energy will go to the next round and you basically wasted a turn not gaining energy for this round. So therefore, the best speed for Zombie Man is usually either speed 3 or speed 4. You don't want him to move too fast, but you also don't want him to be your slowest character in the lineup. Okay, next let's go over his talent sigils. For your damage sigils, you want Sharp Sword and Ruthless. Sharp Sword will give you attack and HP and attack percent at the higher levels. And for Ruthless, you will get injury, internal injury, and charge damage boost, as well as flat attack. And you will get hit percent at the later levels. For your support sigils, you pretty much only want Vitality. It'll give your character HP and flat attack, as well as HP percent at the later levels. Next, I'm going to give you guys a standard Zombie Man lineup. Alright, now keep this in mind. This is the most free-to-play friendly lineup I can literally think of. All the characters on here you should have by now, other than maybe Zombie Man if you're not able to pull him. So for this lineup, you require 3 grapplers and 1 duelist in order to activate Zombie Man's advanced core. And this lineup can be used in both PvP and PvE. Although, if you're going to be using this lineup for PvP, you can replace Beast King for Carnage instead if you have a well-built Carnage, as Beast King is not that great in PvP because he's very squishy. Even with Zombie Man's healing, he usually just gets 1 or 2 tapped, so he's not going to be very useful in PvP, unfortunately. But in PvE and bossing, he's very strong, especially in this lineup. Next, you're going to need a injury or internal injury debuffer, which is going to be your My Mask in this lineup, or Beast King if you need it, or even Zombie Man for his basic attack. And of course, you need a Tenacity Shield Generator, and one of the best characters you can use for this slot is Tank Top Master. And if you guys don't have Tank Top Master, you can literally get him from the 200 Recruit Rookie event thing that I have already done. So that's how I got my Tank Top Master. And you can also buy his shards from the PvP shop if you haven't been doing that. And last, you need an AoE damage dealer. Unless you're using this lineup for bossing, then you can ignore that. And for this lineup, as you can see, Golden Ball will be fitting that role. So let me give you a quick run through of how this lineup is going to work. We have Amai at speed 1 because he is going to be proccing injury from either his ultimate or his basic attack. And the reason why you want a My Mask at speed 1 is just in case if the enemy is running a king or they have Deep Sea King core level 4, which both will seal your energy by 2. Amai can still trigger injury on his basic attack. So when he does this, he'll generate 2 energy for your team, and then after that, Tank Top Master will be able to cast his ultimate and generate shields and tenacity for your front line. And this will also continue and give you 2 energy. Versus if you had Tank Top as speed 1 instead, if you get energy sealed, Tank Top will just use his basic attack and it does nothing. Your entire lineup will fall apart because they won't be able to cast their ultimate thanks to the energy seal. After Tank Top and Amai Mask have moved, the Golden Ball or whatever AoE damage dealer you have will be able to cast their ultimate. And then after that, Zombie Man and the rest of the game will just use their basic attacks until probably round 2. After that, Zombie Man will probably be able to have enough energy if he's speed 3 or 4 in order to cast his ultimate to heal the rest of your team. Next, we will talk about Zombie Man team compositions, or the units that you can put in your Zombie Man lineup. First, we have your injury/internal injury debuffers. As of right now, we don't have any units that can proc the internal injury debuff yet. One of the very first units that will come out that will be able to do this very well is Garou, and that's why I emphasize so much on pulling for Garou. He can proc internal injury on both his ultimate and his basic attack, and he also does follow-up attacks as well, and those will also proc internal injury. Every part of his kit essentially procs internal injury. So this is why he pairs so well with Zombie Man. And next, of course, we have Zombie Man himself. He can proc injury on his basic attack. And Amai Mask is very good for proccing injury. He's very close to Garou, except that he does injury instead of internal injury, so you don't get the ultimate damage boost from Zombie Man's core. But nevertheless, for free-to-play, or if you're unable to pull for Garou on his limited banner, Amai Mask is a very good second option. And of course, we have Beast King with his ultimate to cast injury. If for whatever reason you don't have Amai Mask, or you haven't built your Amai Mask for whatever reason, Beast King is definitely a decent alternative. It's also worth mentioning Metal Knight. He can also proc injury with his ultimate, but most of us, or most of our free-to-play players, don't have Metal Knight, and I didn't have room to fit his picture on the slideshow here, so just worth mentioning him, not that big of a deal. Next, we have tenacity and shield generators. And one of the best shield tenacity generators that is going to come out is Silver Fang. I don't know if he's coming out next or if he's coming out after Garou, most likely after Garou. And Silver Fang can generate a shield just from his passive, so you will not need to use energy like Tank Top Master in order to generate a tenacity shield. Of course, we also have Super Alloy Darkshine. He can generate a tenacity shield with his basic attack, so you most likely want him at either speed 5 or 6, or maybe even 4, so he doesn't cast his ultimate and ruin up your entire lineup. Then we have Tank Top Master, easily the best free-to-play option for generating a tenacity shield. You just cast his ultimate and then you get 2 energy, but you also end up using the 2 energy, so it's a trade-off, and you need a lot of speed on him, so it's not easy to build a Tank Top Master, but he is pretty much the only option available for free-to-play players. And of course, for those of you who have bought the G4 pack, congratulations! He can also be your shield generator, because he can generate a shield just from his passive, and he doesn't even need to cast his ultimate. So in a way, he functions very similar to Super Alloy Darkshine, except he's not a grappler, so you're gonna have to find another grappler to fill in that slot. And another unit that's worth mentioning that will be coming out that can also generate a tenacity shield is Flashy Flash. However, don't worry about him too much. He is essentially a Mega Whale unit. Everyone else will not be able to build him properly, or I just don't recommend pulling him at all. But I just wanted to mention that he also generates a shield. Okay, continuing on with more Zombie Man team composition. You of course will need a third grappler, other than your internal injury or injury debuffer and shield generator. And that third grappler for most people is going to be Carnage Kabuto. He's still very strong during the Zombie Man era, even though his damage reflect is cut a bit short thanks to Zombie Man's healing. The fact that he's a tank and he's able to constantly be healed by Zombie Man's passive and his ultimate makes him a very, very strong option. Next, we have another upcoming unit, although it will be quite a while before he's released. Probably at least, I'd say 4 to 5 months before Goketsu is released. On a power scaling level, he is on par with Garou actually during the Zombie Man era. And he does have internal injury on his basic attack, but you mostly want to use his ultimate for the AoE damage. And his passive increases the potency of heals and tenacity shield, so that makes him very strong in the Zombie Man era as well. but I'll get into him more once I make a review for this character. And of course, at the very bottom, I have tiny pictures of Deep Sea King and Moomin Rider. Moomin Rider is mostly just a filler grappler if you need one. You don't have a third grappler built up for whatever reason. You can just put in your Moomin Rider and he can fit in that slot. And Deep Sea King is in here as well because for a lot of us, including myself, we have built up Deep Sea King and used his core for the last 2.5 months. And if you have a very well invested or highly invested Deep Sea King, you can definitely put him in your Zombieman lineup. And he can also even act as your shield generator, although not a very reliable one because his tenacity shield relies on him getting very low in HP. And that doesn't necessarily always happen thanks to Zombieman's healing. And of course, for every team comp, you need an AoE damage dealer. The two main ones will be Tatsumaki and King. However, if you don't have either of these units, it's fine. You can just put in whatever is your strongest AoE damage dealer you have invested at the time. For me, it's going to be Golden Ball. For some people, it might be Atomic. Doesn't matter. Whoever is your strongest AoE damage dealer, just put them in. You should have a slot available for them. And last, if you have any empty slots available in your lineup, just fill them with any useful filler. I have Dr. Genius here as an example because his passive actually gives your teammates attack percent whenever they're healed, and you're constantly healed with the Zombieman core, at least for the first 2 rounds. So he pairs very well with everyone else in your Zombieman lineup. And then at the bottom we have Lin Lin, which is an upcoming SR unit. She's also a grappler, and her passive actually increases heal rate for the first 2 rounds. Very similar to Sky King's passive, where he increases extra or bonus damage for the first 2 rounds. And she doesn't have to be alive, much like Sky King, so that also makes her a very useful filler unit during this era as well. But of course, I don't know when she's going to be released. On top of that, her basic attack also gives internal injury, and her ultimate heals, so overall, she's a very, very useful filler unit. Alright, and to summarize everything up, Zombieman, like I said before, he is a must-pull unit. If you don't have enough black tickets as of right now, and you plan on playing the game for the long term, please save up your black tickets. Don't gamble them on his banner for his rerun banner, which will be coming probably in 3 months, like I said before. Next, you want to try and limit break and put him into extreme training and get him to 5-star as soon as possible. This is mainly because, like I said before, his extreme passive is very important for PvE bossing. 6 times revive is a big difference compared to 4 times revive. That being said, however, he plays more of a supportive and tank role rather than a DPS or main carry. So even though I said to get him to 5-star as soon as possible, you don't have to max him out completely everywhere else. In fact, you don't even have to give him your best gear, just a decent suit set with attack main stat and correct speed tuning, and he'll be good to go. You should still put your best gear and put most of your investments in your damage dealers and main carries, such as Carnage, Tatsumaki, or King. And for his keepsake, it is not essential for PvE, but in PvP, like I said before, it is very strong, especially during the Zombieman era. It can literally make or break your match and determine whether you can win or not. This is mostly for the whales. If you want to be the top 10 or maybe even like the rank 1 player in your server, then you can get Zombieman's keepsake, but for the rest of us, it's something that's not necessary. It's nice to have, but definitely not essential. And last, but definitely not least, in my opinion and based on my experience from the Southeast Asia server, he has the most longevity out of any LSSR. As I mentioned before, he is still being used during the SSR Plus era for bossing and PvE stages. So that already tells you just how useful this unit is and how important it is for you to actually pull for Zombieman if you have enough black tickets. Well, that's pretty much it for this Zombieman review video, guys. As usual, if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next One Punch Man video. Peace.